I recently sat down to interview a very dear friend and colleague, Jacob Mubarak, and we talked about so many exciting topics in the world of psychedelic healing, sacred retreats, and what each of us can actually do to embody a more attuned consciousness and an evolved consciousness. So I think you're going to enjoy this conversation. Jacob actually led us in an invocation at the beginning of this podcast interview, very much like what would happen if you were sitting in ceremony. So that is such a treat. I hope that you'll tune in and listen up about the tours that he's doing. Also note that I referred to wachuma as buttons. That's peyote. Wachuma is a cactus, so please forgive that little faux pas in the interview. But this is one of our first conversations about the sacred medicine of wachuma, which some people also refer to as San Pedro. So check out the interview. I think you're going to enjoy it. Here's a little bit about today's guest. Jacob Mubarak is the founder of Sacred Truth Tours. He's an author, agape licensed spiritual practitioner, elemental rhythm breathwork facilitator, and teacher in residence at Rhythmia Life Advancement Center, located in Guanacaste, Costa Rica. John is committed to bring joy and facilitate healing through the sacred truth principles of acceptance, joy, and oneness. Jacob's retreats and sacred travel, breathwork, teaching, and private client sessions are all designed to activate spiritual growth and development, both his own and others walking the path. John has worked with thousands of souls internationally, leading workshops and retreats focused on spiritual integration and embodiment. He continues to work with individual clients in one-on-one and group sessions in both spiritual counseling, breathwork, and through healing prayer treatments. When he's not leading retreats or being of service, you will find him in the jungles or beaches of Costa Rica, biking, hiking, camping, and living that sincere, pura vida life. Enjoy the conversation. It's time to upgrade your life. In this podcast and our live events and retreats, we explore ways to hack enlightenment by integrating ancient wisdom and modern neuroscience with transpersonal psychology. From plant medicine and psychedelics to breathwork, mindfulness, and neurofeedback, my guests and I will shine a light on the unique capacity that we have to use our conscious mind to evolve individually and collectively as a species. Tune in each week on your favorite podcast player or the Pennington Media YouTube channel for interviews and discussions about holistic healing of trauma and adverse childhood experiences, burnout recovery, and intentional wellness. As we begin, I would love it if you would lead us in prayer.
It would be my great pleasure. And this is an evocation. So we are not invoking the spirit. You know, the great bards and poets invoke the muse to ask it to come, but we are evoking the presence. We're evoking the awareness that we're already one with it, that it's already here. So this is an evocation. And we always begin in gratitude. I'm so grateful. How grateful I am to be alive today, that we have another opportunity to walk in the love of the divine and to walk in divine intelligence. I'm so grateful for this beautiful, luminous being, Dr. Andrea Pennington, who is a dear friend and a light, who is walking her path with such brilliance. I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful for all those joining in to participate in the shift in consciousness. I'm so grateful. I'm so thankful. I'm so grateful and so thankful for this moment, for this now moment. And in this moment, in this now moment, I recognize the eternal now. In this now moment, I recognize that which is real, that which is true, that which is enduring, that which is unchanging, and that which is within me and within Andrea and within each one in the sound of my voice. That which is real, that which is omniscient, omnipotent, omniactive, and omnipresent, the presence of the divine intelligence, the light of infinite intelligence, the boundless, without circumference, presence of unconditional love with no opposite. nothing contra to it. Love absorbs. So I'm recognizing the divine as love. I'm recognizing the divine as intelligence. I'm recognizing the divine as power, a power without exhaustion. And so in this moment, as we unify with this truth that we can't be separate from life that's living us, we can't be separate from the intelligence that's within us and all around us. Therefore, I know that the spirit is incapable of separation or division. And if we are of the spirit, then we, each one, is incapable of separation or division from our good, incapable of separation or division from our vitality, from our excellence, from our creativity, from our abundance, from our prosperity, from our peace, from our harmony, from our order. And so I know that all of these qualities are present right here and right now because we're one with the source that is the one of all of those things. All of those expressions, all of those qualities. So I just speak the word knowing that this podcast, this interview, best podcast ever. Best ever. For the presence of the divine is leading us, guiding and guarding our steps each step of the way. We're surrounded by infinite love, and a power goes before us that makes the way easy and immediate for everything that needs to be said. This is a time that the world is different because we met today, that something shifted because we're together today. This is a powerful time of transformation, and we step into it and we surrender to it. We allow it to carry us. And so we just rest in thee and say, and so it is.
And
Amen.
so it is. Amen. Aho, Ashe.
Ashe, hayaya.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank you.
JJ. What a gift you are.
Thank you.
And yes, what a gift this conversation is going to be. Oh, I am almost at a loss for where to begin, but I'm going to start at the beginning.
Okay.
So we met a couple of years ago through a connection at Rhythmia Life Advancement Center in Costa Rica. We met and it was love at first sight, if I do say so myself. Such resonance. And I just have such great admiration. I just want to honor you and acknowledge you for the great light that you are, stewarding and leading people as you're doing your resident teaching at Rhythmia, as you're leading tours, as you're providing one-on-one coaching and breathwork and all of these great things, because I've been able to witness this and to feel it. And I know the authenticity that you vibrate with. And I'm so grateful for this connection. So where to begin? I think one of the things I've known about you as we've seen things transpire with work, with moving, with family and loved ones transitioning, you have been able to maintain this spiritual core and presence that I so admire. And I'd love it if we start off there. For many of us, we are on a journey of conscious evolution. We're doing all this personal development work. We're looking at our shadow. We're really embracing self-love. And that can take a lot of work, conscious effort. Not that it's a bad thing, but I would love it if you just share some of the principles that you have learned and that you live on a daily basis that allow you to show up for us in the way that you do.
Thank you. Thank you for those beautiful words and for that question. So the maintenance of spiritual practice as the container for expansion and growth. Let's start here. I call it freedom in the groove. You know, I thought for many years that freedom was, doing whatever I wanted to do whenever I wanted to do it, like making whatever choice I wanted to do, I'm free. And what I come to realize is that freedom fulfills itself, liberation fulfills itself within structure. And so freedom in the groove is a jazz phrase, right? Like that there's, and to me, it's like when you're improvising and you're in the riff, there's this infinite potential and infinite possibility, but it's contained within structure, right? The jazz musician has to have studied, know music theory, know your key signature, know your time signature, know the order of solos, what the header is, all of this stuff. But inside that structure, infinite potential and possibility exist. So it's the structures that we create in life that allow us that liberation and freedom. And you said, how do you maintain this in the midst of all this? And I have to share with you, and I know that you know this, that we all move in and out of these dark nights of the soul, of challenging moments that we all need someone to know the truth for and about us when we can't see it ourselves. And we all have those blind spots. So it isn't as you know, I'm constantly, like we do the work. And actually I want to change that phrase from work. I was asked to do a prayer for an interview with Krishna Das. And, Krishna Das, the great kirtan singer and beautiful man. And so this was recently. So, he's older, right? Been through all of this. And so the interviewer was finishing with him and going to ask me to do the closing prayer. So I'm sitting there on the Zoom waiting. And she says, before she moves to me, she says, Krishna Das, thank you so much for your work. Your work has been my constant companion on my spiritual journey all these years. And for so many people, you've been a light. Your work has shown the way. Your work, the work of your life is so significant. Thank you so much for your work. And Krishna Das goes, well, if it was work, I wouldn't have done it. Yes. And so I'm cued into this, like, we do our work, but it's not work. It's our spiritual growth. Like, that's the only thing that excites me is my own spiritual growth and development. Yes. And then to walk that path with others, and then to be in service to this great idea of a world that works for everyone. So how do we maintain practice? The first thing for me is consistency over intensity. I notice how often I have a certain way that I think practice is supposed to look. So one, I'll go into that, consistency and intensity. The second is creating containers that support you in fulfilling your practice. So those two examples, I'll give an example of those two things. I've been wanting to formalize an evening practice. I find that, like, by the end of the day, I'm done and I just want to check out, but I'd really love to have a little bit more of an evening practice. So I created a group of friends, some clients, some friends, and we're just on a WhatsApp chat. And the intention is that we just, it's an accountability group. We just send a check mark when we've done our 5 gratitudes and 5 acknowledgements each night. 5 things we're grateful for, 5 things that we want to acknowledge ourselves for doing well each day. And so I created the group. That's the first key, is creating structures that support you. I noticed that in my mind, doing my gratitudes and acknowledgements looked like me sitting down with a journal at the end of the night and writing. And that became challenging. I'd, forget, and then I'd be in bed, and, I got to do this. And because it had to look that way. And then as I started to open up the aperture and realize that practice could be keeping my phone handy, and throughout the day when I notice something that I'm grateful for or have that moment, just to make a quick voice note, and that I can dictate instead of write. I don't have to write. It doesn't have to be a journal. So I'm dictating into my notes, all these things that make the practice easier. It doesn't have to be this way. And then consistency over intensity is the key for me with anything that I'm doing right now that's really been up for me. I'm writing this book, and I was having a challenge consistently writing. And when I scheduled it and said, all right, I'm going to write from this time to this time every day, it seemed to not flow. But if I made a commitment based on the principle consistency over intensity, if I made a commitment to just write 1 sentence every day, 1 sentence, that's all. And I found by that, my writing is moving along. And if I do have a busy day and I can't get to it and it's 9 o'clock, I'm going to write 1 sentence. But it's keeping that momentum with movement. We go in and out. Sometimes we're really on it. And then other times weeks go by and we got to start again. And it's so hard to restart with our physical practice. And so the realization that there's no goal. There's no goal to spirituality. There's no goal to physical practice. This is a lifestyle. This is what we do. We move our body. We pray. We meditate. It's what we do. So then there's no goal. I don't have to work out an hour every day. No. It's like, okay, I move my body every day. Yesterday, it was a half hour. Today, it might be 10 minutes. Tomorrow, it might be an hour. Consistency over intensity has been a motto. And I have to acknowledge Reverend Michael. This was a talk that he gave years ago, and just that phrase stuck with me, and it's really evolved. the same thing with my meditation practice, morning practice, evening practice. Sometimes we're busy and I can't do an hour or a half hour. So I have a collapsible practice. I think that's the third pillar, is having something that you can expand and contract, and making that commitment for consistency. So if I can meditate for 5 minutes before I leave today, and then I might stop and have 2 minutes at lunch, or 2 minutes. I'm just keeping the practice going. So physical practice, spiritual practice, writing practice, consistency over intensity, and opening up the aperture. It doesn't have to look a certain way for us to fulfill that commitment. So those are some of the principles that have really helped me.
I love that. I love that, because that idea of the freedom in the groove, when you're in a groove, it's a flow, it's a movement. And as a musician, I recognize that flexibility of being able to play around. And that's what I found that I've had to rely on for myself, is that same sort of flexibility without these goals and rigid, how many minutes. And of course, that's what I tell all of my authors. Like, it's great if you are that kind of person who could say, I'm going to do 2 hours, this day, this day, this day. If that works for you, great. But for many of us, it puts too much pressure. Same thing with meditation. If I think I have to sit there for 30 minutes or an hour and then my mind is wandering, that can activate your inner critic, or your inner editor. That's like, so having that flexibility to say, you know what, I'm just going to show up. I'm going to be present. I'm going to breathe. Maybe I'll write for a minute. Maybe I'll just visualize for a few minutes and see what comes in. But I love that. And I love the consistency over intensity. That one just rings true so much for me on so many levels. Hello, beautiful soul. Would you like to connect with me and a team of amazing healers and medicine people? Well, we are coming to a city or country near you. You can click on the link in the description of this video or this podcast so that you can find out about the Conscious Evolution retreats that I am hosting in various countries with my dear friends and medicine people, Dr. Jill Stocker and John Jacob Mubarak. Some are including sacred plant medicine, and some are with breathwork and meditation. No matter where we are always bringing our hearts of compassion to help you heal and evolve and thrive. So if you're curious, if you're interested, if you want to get on the wait list or just be notified, click on the link and I will share the information on our upcoming retreats. Just as a highlight, I will be hosting with John Jacob Mubarak in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, a sacred mushroom retreat that also includes breathwork if you don't want to take mushrooms, so that you can expand your consciousness. John Jacob is the founder of Sacred Truth Tours. You can check out one of our podcasts together to learn about how his principles so fully aligned with my conscious evolution principles. So this will be a wonderful facilitated retreat in a sacred space where you can bust out and evolve. I will also be sitting in a sacred ceremony with Dr. Jill Stocker. We are returning to Omega Institute. This one is for women only. This is about reclaiming your feminine power, healing womb trauma, and really stepping into your divine feminine expression. I will also be doing a solo retreat at Omega Institute in the summer that's all about self-love and resilience. I will be including breathwork, meditation, and mindfulness practices that allow you to really tune in, heal, and nurture real self-love and resilience. And if you want to pop on over to Europe, I will also be facilitating a magic truffle retreat in Amsterdam. So if any of this appeals to you, please do click on the link where you can get more information and be added to a list to be informed about our upcoming retreats and events. I look forward to seeing you. Now, one other thing that I've been loving hearing about from you as you are initiating and leading these sacred truth tours, and that is these three, pillars of truth. And you say that when you stand in these truths, life is coherent and life can lead you effortlessly into living beyond limitation. So I would love it if we can sort of tap on each of these three truths.
My great pleasure. And these truths, one of the things that I am realizing is, everybody's got their thing, their way, their right. And so as I was writing, it came to me like, this is not the way, right? This is sort of my map. And it's the terrain I've covered. And I want to share my map with you. And you share your map with me, and we'll see a broader swath of the terrain, and so the principles emerged from working with clients one-on-one over the years, and through thousands of people at Rhythmia Life Advancement Center in Guanacaste, Costa Rica. And what I began to see is that acceptance. The three principles are acceptance, joy, and oneness. And they're sequential, right? And acceptance has some sub-pillars. So acceptance in general is just this sort of idea that non-resistance is an art. Once mastered, the world is yours. That's a quote from Florence Scovel Shinn, a lady that you turned me on to. When I'm so grateful, so impactful in my life, I have to tell you that. Arthur Rubinstein says, there is no secret formula for success, except perhaps an unconditional acceptance of life and everything that it brings. So this ability to be in acceptance begins with unbecoming. Is the first sub-pillar of acceptance. We must unlearn, we must unbecome all the limiting stories that we've freely taken on. I'm not a big conspiracy theory guy. I tend to not, those generally don't resonate with me. But if there is a conspiracy theory out there, it's that there's something wrong with you. That's the biggest conspiracy theory, right? Or something wrong with us, something wrong with me. And that comes from my own sense of not belonging. And, as kids, we just want to belong. We want to feel loved. We want to feel enough, and we want to feel safe. Those are our core woundings. And we do all sorts of things. Think back in each of our lives, all the stuff we did to feel like we belonged, all the stuff we did to get love, all the stuff we freely took those stories on, and they became sutured within us. And then they operate in the background as these sort of like zombies, right? They give no life, and they're not alive, but they're just sort of draining our dreams and our purpose and our ambition, our motivation. So we must begin to unbecome. I love that phrase. Like, it's so terribly unbecoming, right? I'm unbecoming. Yes, I am unbecoming. Unbecoming all the limited stories of fear, doubt, worry, lack, limitation, not enoughness. And as we look at that and start to unpack those stories, those narratives, we have to move into the second pillar of acceptance, which is forgiveness, the advanced technology of forgiveness. Which is a deep realization that anything that I or anyone else did to hurt, harm, or endanger me or anyone else was fundamentally done out of ignorance. Because if I really had an embodied sense of oneness, I couldn't do anything to hurt myself or anyone else. And so it's an ignorance of the fundamental truth of our unity with life that causes all of this. And so all acceptance is self-acceptance, all forgiveness is self-forgiveness. As we move into deep state of forgiveness of ourselves and others for these stories that we've taken on, all the chances that we've missed, all of that, right? We then begin to surrender, the third pillar of acceptance. And surrender has some qualities to it. Faith, trust, awareness, patience, and meditation. Faith, trust, awareness, patience, and meditation are the sort of what surrender requires. And as we begin to surrender and accept, there's a sort of, here's what's so in life. This is the beginning of unwinding these tightly wound patterns, like the thing that we want to change about ourselves, the things that we want to fix, right? All those things that we want to unbecome. Actually, with surrender, we begin to see that There's not one part of us that doesn't deserve and isn't worthy of love and acceptance, especially the parts that we want to cut out, especially the parts that we want to change. In fact, they need more love, not less. And so how do we love those parts? How do I love my anger? How do I love my procrastination? How do I love my sadness? Right? It never rang true to me. Like, love your anger. I was like, oh, how do I love that part I don't like? Acceptance. If we, as we begin to accept those parts of us, we love them in, we unify them. We're unifying the opposites, Carl Jung's enanthrodomia, right? We're unifying the unification of opposites. And one of the tools that I use to do that is I call put a Buddha on it.
Okay.
Right? Like, how do I love the part that I'm trying to change, right? I put a Buddha on it because
what
Buddha
does that
isn't...
mean? What does that mean?
Buddha, yes, Buddha isn't some guy that that lived 2,500 years ago is smarter than you and me will ever be. Buddha means awakened consciousness. It means awareness, right? Like Christ isn't the guy's last name. Christ means consciousness. You know? So when I put a Buddha on it, you know, if anger's my thing, and I'm like, all right, I'm going to work on my anger. And then something happens and I blow up and, oh, I got angry. Now I'm angry at myself for being angry. And what do? There's my angry Buddha. I put a Buddha on it because that part of me that's angry needs love. It needs more love. And by putting a Buddha on it, I'm accepting it. I'm placing my awareness on it. There's my angry Buddha. Somehow that gives me a little bit of space between the thing, the emotion, and me, the observer. And it's fun and it's light. And I've been putting Buddhas on everything. I had a client, maybe this is too salacious for the podcast. You can edit it out if not. I had a gay client, 60-year-old doctor, really, you know, one day he texted me on a Friday night and he's like, I just really want, okay. I just really want some dick right now. I just really want sex, you know? And I said, well, there's your, you know, dick craving Buddha. There's not one part of us. If I ate too much and I have indigestion, there's Buddha with heartburn. If I walk out of here and fall on my face, there's Buddha that fell on his face. Not one part that doesn't deserve to be accepted and loved. So as we unbecome all the stories, move into deep forgiveness, and place our awareness through surrender on what's unfolding, we lighten up. We just become lighter. And what I found was my clients would say, you know, I go, how was your week? It's been a crazy week. It's been really challenging, but I'm happy. Right? We move into a natural state of joy. Joy outpictures from acceptance. And it's a joy that's internal, that doesn't come from the world, so the world can't take it away. That's why no matter what's happening in life, I can still kind of be okay with stuff, is what I found people were saying. And joy, as the second principle, has the subcategories of flow, right? When we're in joy, we're in flow. It's the natural state of flow. So some of the practices on what brings me joy, what makes me happy, are really practices that bring us into flow so that we can be more of who we are, be more productive, be more effective in the world. So joy brings flow, and flow means no contra energy. There's nothing opposite. I'm in the flow of life. And abundance and prosperity are a second fallout of joy. In fact, joy is a greater indicator of abundance and prosperity than hard work. And I think that's what Krishna Das was referring to. If it was work, I wouldn't have done it, you know? And then finally, sovereignty emerges out of joy. And sovereignty has the components of being able to think about what I want to think about, not ruminating. That inner critic that you mentioned, that inner editor, I call it the evil stepmother. It's like, you don't get to go to the ball. Go clean the toilets. That's what you're good for. Right? You know? So, being able to think about what I want to think about is sovereign. When I'm ruminating and I can't move my mind, that's low sovereignty. High sovereignty, place my awareness where I want. Creating affirmative narratives. When I'm in joy, I switch my narratives. I had a client whose father died at 8, and she, for years was just regret and sadness every time she thought of her father. He wasn't there when I graduated. He wasn't there when I got married. He wasn't there when my child was born. Now I'm sick and he's not there to, all of this. And one day she said to me, something shifted. And now, I used to think of my father with such sadness and regret. And now I think when I think of my father, I'm grateful for the time that we had together. And that's nothing that a therapist or a counselor or a coach could be like, you really should be grateful for the time you had. It's like, but when it comes naturally, right, that's an outpicturing of joy. I'm creating affirmative narratives for my life. And then finally being able to do what we say we want to do. So those are the aspects of sovereignty. When we're in those, when we're in flow, when abundance and prosperity are all about us, and we're sovereign with our thinking and our actions and our stories, we've recreated new stories from the ones we became. We can join Yeshua ben Yusuf in his ecstatic statement that I and the Father are one. It is not I, but the Father within that does the work. It is the Spirit within that does the work. And this brings us to a deep state of internal validation. I've noticed how deeply attached I am to external validation. Don't get me wrong, it still feels good, so feel free. But there's this sense of like, okay, it doesn't matter what you think. Okay, so many times I'd end the day and be like, oh God, I can't believe I said that. Oh, what are they thinking? I said that in that meeting. Oh, that was such a bad action. And I talked too much at that dinner, And it's like, okay, I'm me. And those people know me. And if me talking too much or me taking some statement had them think poorly of me and they don't want to hang around me because of that, then they're not my people. Right. and I get to be internal, like, I know who I am. Wait a minute. I know my intention. I know I'm not perfect. And so we got to love all of us. So this internal validation, as opposed to that, the metaphor is instead of scanning like a radar for the cues of belonging, we now are like a gyroscope. A gyroscope is internally balanced. It was created for aeronautical travel so that it has an exterior casing and concentric rings inside and a central balance point. And no matter how the plane turns, upside down, right, whatever, it's constantly finding balance, no matter what the exterior positioning is. So we move from the radar to the gyroscope, internally oriented and balanced. Those three pillars, when we're in high acceptance, high joy, high oneness, we're in coherence, and life is leading us better than we could have imagined, way outside of what we could have put on a vision board,
I love it. I love these sacred truths, and they resonate with me so very deeply, as they completely mirror what we do in the Cornerstone process for integrating all of these parts of ourselves through acceptance and love. And like your unbecoming, we help people unlearn who they've been programmed to be so that they can be their authentic self. I love the way that you synthesize that. And I love the way that you bring in this conversation before your prayer for Krishna Das, because I was just at Omega Institute and Krishna Das was performing. And it's like, yeah, that was not work, honey. That was not work. That was not work. Right. And, it's been interesting because I shared a very tiny bit with you that this summer was, it was a doozy for me. And the most interesting thing between moving house, dealing with family stuff and challenges with the new house, I still had some appointments that I didn't want to reschedule because, we're doing this global summit for collective trauma healing, doing the psychedelic assisted therapy summit. So there were some things that I had, pretty firm commitments with. And the most interesting thing was my partner saw me after doing one of these interviews and he was like, whoa, your energy. And I'm like, yeah, because that's not work. When I'm here with you, when we're sharing, when we're in the flow and the groove, and we're talking about these deep spiritual truths and how we can set people on these paths, that's not work. That is the joy of fulfilling my dharma. So I love that you're bringing these sacred truths to people through your book. I wish you many blessings in the writing. I am calling for some new authors for one of our group anthologies called Sacred Medicine. We are calling for authors of all kinds all around the world who have stories to share about psychedelic assisted therapy, psychedelic medicine, sitting in ceremony with Kambo, Bufo, 5-MeO-DMT, ayahuasca, psilocybin mushrooms, mescaline, peyote, you name it, we want to hear about it. And in particular, we are publishing stories of good and challenging trips, because I really want people to understand the breadth and the depth of experiences that can come when sitting with psychedelic medicine. I personally have been helped so much in my own healing journey, and I'm now sitting in ceremony with clients, and I know that people need more information on what is safe, what's not, what's to be expected, and what might catch you off guard. So if this sounds like a book that you want to be a part of, then please click the link in the description or in my bio so that you can share your story or your concept totally free. We at Make Your Mark Global do all of the heavy lifting, the editing, the formatting, getting the book globally distributed on Amazon and other book retailers. And you retain 100% copyright for your story. We are really looking forward to bringing this book out to the world in 2023. So share this video or the link with other people that you know who want to be featured in a book about sacred medicine. I look forward to reading your story. So we met on the plane of psychedelics, and I know that you have so many tools in your toolbox, from the breathwork and the journaling and the prayer and the intentions and all of this. But I really would love for you to share a little bit about your experience with these sacred plant medicines, because you've got some gifts and you've been tapped into really gifted healers and sacred medicine men and women, like legit medicine men and women. So tell me about, how do psychedelics fit in to your sacred tours?
Yes. Wow. So as you were asking that question, it was like, where to begin?
I know.
I think I'd like to start with a brief explanation of the brain and what happens on psychedelics. Okay. From a physiological perspective, and then move into the spiritual perspective. Awesome. And then some examples. So the default mode network of the brain. I know you're familiar with it. Just a brief summary is, it started with the early days of brain mapping and psychedelic exploration. The discovery of this default mode network as the original thought was, wow, there must be a lot of mental activity going on in the brain during the psychedelic experience. So let's do a measurement of the person in stasis, where they're just sitting in the office, and then we'll measure brain activity during the psychedelic experience. And what they found was there was very little brain activity in the psychedelic experience, as measured by blood flow and et cetera. But when the patient was just sitting in the office getting their baseline reading, their brain was all over the place. And they began to, through brain mapping and brain imaging, discover these two kind of parts of the brain that work in a seesaw fashion: the attentional mode and the default mode. The attentional mode, right now, the attentional mode is activated. We're actively engaged, right? So the default mode is off, attentional mode is on. When we're sitting, relaxing, the default mode comes on, the attentional mode is off. The default mode is sort of where we go to ruminate, where we go to daydream, where we sort of wander. It's our ego. It's our sense of self, which is super important. And a sense of self presupposes a sense of separation. And it is also a governor for memory. It keeps certain messy memories suppressed. It manages and allocates all the energy in the brain. So everything has to go through the default mode to communicate. Different parts of the brain communicate through it, sort of like the symphony conductor of the orchestra of the brain. So in the psychedelic experience and in breathwork, the default mode is quieted and the attentional mode is not required. And so different parts of the brain that don't normally speak start communicating. And those memories that come up, we have new ways of making connections around memories that we didn't have before. So this is, and the third thing that sort of happens in the psychedelic experience is the default mode, as it quiets, our ego quiets. And so there's a dissolution of self and a great sense of oneness and connectedness and bliss. So this is sort of part of the physiological aspect, neurological aspect of what I understand. I'm no expert in that area, but that's my understanding. And it was really interesting to me. But so much more is happening in plant medicine than just the sum of the parts, right? In the physiology. And so the plant medicine has been so profound for me to help me see those in the unbecoming process, to help me make connections that I haven't made. The different types of plant medicine, I think this would probably be different types of plant medicine we worked with. There's so many, these sacred plants. My good friend and co-facilitator of retreats in Peru, Wachan, said to me on this last trip, as we were getting ready to drink our wachuma or San Pedro, he said, this is a gift from Pachamama that brings us closer to her. It's a gift that brings us closer. And I just loved that. So these plant medicines are sacred gifts that bring us closer to the truth of who we are. Wachuma, or San Pedro, ayahuasca, iboga, rapé, coca leaves are some of the medicines, copal, that I work with. I'm going to stop there and ask you to maybe ask me a question so I don't get too far off.
This is wonderful. Well, let's break them into psychedelic and non-psychedelic, because with your rapé, with your cacao, with coca leaves, you're not necessarily going to a full-on psychedelic experience. And because I haven't heard anyone on my podcast talk about wachuma, and I have yet to experience it. I'm hoping that I will with you in December for New Year's. Why don't you start with wachuma and tell us a little bit about these little buttons, where they grow, and what a ceremony is like.
Yes. So wachuma grows all over the world. There's different varieties, but mainly in the Sacred Valley of Peru. It's a high mountain cactus. And when I was with my friend Wachan in Peru, I said, I'd love to do some ayahuasca here too. And there's a place here in the Sacred Valley where we can, where I know we can do a ceremony. And he goes, well, he only works with wachuma. And he said, brother, you are here to visit wachuma in the house of wachuma. If you want to visit ayahuasca, you must visit her in her house, which is the jungle, not the mountains. I was like, okay, we're just working with the wachuma then. So wachuma was used. It's a cousin of peyote, used by the Incas and the indigenous people in the Amazon basin, or in South America, for thousands and thousands of years. When the Spanish came and the Incas gave it to the Spaniards, they thought they saw the gates of heaven, and so they called it San Pedro. So that's the Spanish name. The indigenous name is wachuma. And this cactus is very gentle. It's a beautiful heart opening and connecting medicine. So the way you can drink it at night, but when I do tours in Peru, we drink during the day, and we hike in Machu Picchu, and we hike in Mandor Waterfall, and we hike in different temples, and you're connecting. This is opening us up to receive the wisdom of the ancient ones, the wisdom of these temples. The ceremonies, are all about connection. So we have local, flute players and drummers are with us, and we all have drums and rattles and conch horns, and we begin in this huge field below the mountains of Machu Picchu. We're about 2,000 feet below Machu Picchu in the rainforest, and we connect with the mountains, and we connect with the star people, and we connect with the Pachamama. We're connecting and opening up and giving thanks and recognizing our connectedness with it. And then we dance and we sing and we play our drums and we celebrate. And then we begin to welcome the medicine, and we drink the medicine, and we gentle walk through the Garden of Eden.
So you're physiologically, you're not doing any purging. You don't need to be laying down. Like, you can walk and interact with Pachamama.
Yes, I mean you can purge on wachuma. It's not as common as with ayahuasca, for example, or other hallucinogens. You can have a physical reaction. It is also cleaning the body, which is, detoxing. So you can have that, but it's not, you're much more able to move around and walk. And even when I was, one of the journeys, I was really physically affected, and I was still able to complete, it was a challenge, but I was able to do it. But it's mainly, you might have a purge and then it's just, you're open and you're walking around and you're very, and you can eat. We eat these beautiful, we don't eat a lot, but the fruits and vegetables in Peru are just so amazing. So you're just eating these beautiful fruits and vegetables and nature and nuts you're walking, we'll come to a place and we'll stop. On this one journey, we stopped at this hut. We found a hut. We went in, we all had our drums. We sat around in a circle and we lit the fire and began to share the talking stick. And each one, it's like, share a poem, share a song, share what you're going through, share an insight, share what's up for you, just share you, right? An authentic expression, and connect with the medicine, connect with your brothers and sisters. And so we each share. And then drumming and music are so important, of course. So we're singing and we're drumming and we just are creating this energy. We're shimmering the field, right? Shimmering the field of energy. And then we move from there and we go on and we walked up to a river. And then we stop and we enjoy some more, and we cold plunge in the beautiful Peruvian rivers, and we begin to make our Aini Picura. This is a big part of the wachuma ceremony. The Aini is the Inca tradition of reciprocity. And so we must give back all that we take from Pachamama. So on these retreats, we always enter and ask for permission from the ancestors, from the land, for all we're taking. So we have to make our offering of reciprocity back to Pachamama. And we begin to make this mandala on big leaves from the jungle. And we've brought crystals and corn and coca leaves and incense and food and coins and all sorts. And we make this beautiful mandala and we wrap it up. And now we carry it from the river up to this waterfall. And we gather around with our conch horns and our drums and our rattles, and we make this offering with all our hearts and all our souls out of such gratitude. And at this point, you're 5-6 hours into this experience. You're like, whoa, I'm so connected with all of life. I'm one, thank you. And we make this offering, and it's just this explosion of love and connectedness and joy. And then we walk back. So this is like a typical ceremony, right? It's all about the connection.
So that connection I can see that heart opening, that feeling the connection, that sharing, that being seen and being in nature. What do you think are the therapeutic benefits? So why would someone choose wachuma over something else? Or just why? Why would you go on this journey? What can you get out of it?
It's so interesting. Why would someone choose over? And I'm like, well, I want to use all of them. I don't want to just do one. But like Wachan only works with wachuma, right? And we see with our healers, curanderos, they either only work with yahe or they only work with ayahuasca because there's some synergy. Yeah. So I think on the very base level, what resonates with you, certain energies of different plants will resonate more or less. In general, to choose a wachuma ceremony is for me because I find myself so easy to get closed in my own stuff and the myopathy of my own story, to feel disconnected, right? The Course in Miracles says the only lack we need correct is a sense of separation. And so that's what it is, right? That's the only thing that is this sense that we're separate. And we're really not. And so all the stuff that we do to not feel separate, those are all the stories that we take on and that we have to unbecome. So why choose wachuma it's a wonderful way to connect and to help correct that sense of separation.
That's very clear. Awesome. Okay. Well, I'm looking forward to this. Yes.
Me too.
So, well, let's talk about then ayahuasca and yahe, the magical brew from South America. What's your experience there?
What tremendous, these plant medicines are concentrated drops of nature, my good friend Sarah likes to say, right? And I believe that I believe in pan consciousness, not consciousness in the human sense, right? Like we have a sense of what consciousness is. I would call that reflexive consciousness. But in a very base level, consciousness is awareness of your awareness of the surroundings. And so plants have a level of consciousness, right? And even rocks, even inanimate objects, there's an intelligence there in molecular strings and chains put together in intriguingly obliging manners, right, to create all these things. So there's consciousness, there's intelligence everywhere. And these plant medicines are a high vibrational expression of that intelligence. So ayahuasca has a different vibration, a different resonance. And they call ayahuasca the death vine. Not to scare you. Don't worry, it's perfectly safe. It's called the death vine. You'll be fine. But it's a death of self, right? A death of the of a protected personality, a death of that which no longer serves, and a welcoming, into that which is seeking to emerge. And ayahuasca as a plant medicine, has an amazing. What the medicine is trying to do is to help us see those limiting stories, to help us see the lie that we've been telling ourselves of who we think we need to be to get our needs met, and to merge back to this state of wholeness through an interior journey, right? Wachuma is this exterior celebration of recognizing my oneness with everything. Ayahuasca is an interior dissolution of a sense of self to realize our oneness with everything. And so as we come back to this deep state of harmony, right? We're harmonized. We're no longer at civil war with ourselves. We're no longer in that tug of war. In harmony, then we can move with ayahuasca into a deep state of forgiveness and healing. From wholeness we heal. With all of these plant medicines, the container is so important. With whom you are working, there and the integration. With no matter what, whether it's church, spiritual center, plant medicine, yoga, whatever it is that you're doing, you have to integrate what comes to you while you're doing your practice. And I find so many people, we saw it at Agape as well, Agape International Spiritual Center in Los Angeles. People would come to service on Wednesdays and Sundays, and they'd get this great, full of energy, and yes, everything's great. And they're not doing their work during the week. And so they just, it's like, I need another hit of good vibes, please. And it's the same thing that's happening, I think, with a lot of plant medicine, with containers that don't provide really strong integration, because 50% of the work is out of ceremony. And in fact, what all these plant medicines and ayahuasca specifically is getting us to realize is there's no outside of ceremony.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yes. Like that's the whole thing. Wachuma is connecting, ayahuasca is connecting, you realize that it's all the path. It's all grist for the mill.
Life is the ceremony. We are living the ceremony.
Yes.
I love what you're saying about the ayahuasca experience. That's the last time that I sat with this great mother. I was in Costa Rica. You were there. And that experience of shedding old stories and beliefs, I think it was the fourth night of ceremony. I went in and asked the medicine to show me what blocks me in these different areas of my life. And I was shown these scenes of all these fears. And I was like, oh, you're right. Yep, that's one. You're right. And then the medicine said to me, would you like to see what's beyond that fear? And I was like, show me. And as soon as I saw this different interpretation of my life in each of these scenarios, I realized that all those beliefs I had been carrying, all those fears I'd been carrying, there was an alternative. And as soon as I got them and I'm like saying, oh my gosh, that's possible, that's possible, that's possible. Then the medicine said to me, are you ready to go beyond your fear? And I knew what that meant. So I grabbed my bucket, got to the, right? I got to the edge of my mattress and I let it all go. I mean, let it go. And then I went out on the lawn and I just laid there staring up. And it happened to be when the eclipse was happening. So I was able to lay there from the beginning of the eclipse after midnight till about 3 a.m. And I was just getting these visions of how I could integrate what I just experienced. And I'm telling you this long story because you were part of this. I remember calling you not even 2 or 3 months later. And I was like, JJ, you remember what I told you when you took me out to eat after I left Rhythmia? And I was telling you all these great things that the medicine showed me and all these revelations. And I called you and I was like, do you think I'm crazy? Because I'm implementing them. I'm starting this whole new project. And you told me, no, you're not crazy. You're like, you're living it. And that for me is what integration is. It's like you take these insights, and not all of them are going to be life changing in a specific way like mine was around this new enterprise. But for me, integration is exactly as you say. It is at least 50% of the journey. And it's what has inspired me to lead integration circles and to support people in their integration journeys and their preparation, because it's so vital. Otherwise, I've seen so many people do retreat hopping. It's like you said at Agape, where they're like, give me my next hit. They're like, just let me sit with the medicine again and again and again. And it's like, I'm still integrating my first ayahuasca experience back in 2017 in Peru. You know what I'm saying?
Yes. I had a vision of, my guides showed me all these waterfalls. It was like this half moon of these big headwaters, waterfall. And they were all flowing into a single river, and the river was flowing over me. And I asked what that was. And the response was, those are all the intentions you've set in all the ceremonies that you've done. They're still working. They're still flowing over you.
Wow.
And I think that just speaks to what you were just saying,
And it also speaks to the patience, because sometimes, I don't know about you, but sometimes I get these epiphanies and I'm like, yes, that's it. And then, a little while later, I'm like, so where's that? Where that? So I love that idea that, don't worry, honey, it's flowing. It's all flowing to you. It's flowing to you.
Oh, can I add a little something to that, right? Like this idea of germination. I got this download in the funniest way. I was a vegan. I'm no longer a vegan, but I was vegan for many years. And I heard that, sprouted seeds and nuts were better for vegans because they had more protein and they were easier to digest, right? So I go to the Santa Monica farmer's market to buy some sprouted seeds and nuts, and I look and they look like regular seeds and nuts. I was expecting, sprouts, right? So I asked the guy behind the counter, it was a kid, and I go, are these sprouted? They don't look sprouted. He goes, oh. Like my parents asked me to watch the stand, it's like, okay. So I bought them, I go home, I go to grandfather Google, and what are sprouted seeds and nuts? And the first thing that comes up is germination. And the biological definition of germination is the movement of any organism from smaller existence to greater being. Like, oh, that sounds metaphysical. Come on. And then I looked at what happens to the seed, right? The seed has this external coating, right? The seed shell, which is hard and protective. And right underneath the seed shell is the protein layer that the latent metabolic machinery that's within the seed will use when the time is right. When the conditions are right, when the soil and the nitrogen and the moisture and the temperature and everything is right, there's an activation that occurs. What you just spoke of is the activations occurred, but like the sprouted seeds and nuts, the external hasn't changed yet, right? The activation has occurred inside. We begin using what's the fuel for our next stage of growth are the protective coverings that what we have to unbecome. is the fuel. So we begin eating away at that, this something's activated. Our life is ostensibly the same on the external, but we feel like, oh my God, something's changed within me, but nothing in like what's frustrating, right? But it's moving through all of those things that we eat away at the protective coatings and mechanisms, coping mechanisms, compulsive behaviors that we've taken on in order to protect ourselves. It's those things that provide the fuel until the plumule and the taproot can emerge and the seed is completely broken open. And so, as you're saying, you go to ceremony, it's this sense of germination and something's been activated within us, but we must have patience, right? We can't rush the oak tree out of the acorn, and we can't help if, I'm such a good progressive liberal. If I saw a little butterfly struggling to get out of the chrysalis and I went to cut it open to help it out, I'd kill it, right? Because it needs to struggle to strengthen its wings to fly. So everything, I'll finish with this. I studied with a beautiful man in Ghana, brother Ishmael Teta. And one of the simplest things he said to me that I love, he goes, John, nature is my teacher. I just like, yes, I love that. And it's impacted me so much because we can see in nature the rhythm, we can see the seed, we can see that every dark night has a dawn, every winter has a spring, every storm has a sunny day. This is the process. This is the cycle. I can rest in the rhythms of nature and allow the germination to unfold.
I'm just going to pause on that for a minute. There's so much goodness in that, and that idea of all this fuel that's in there, fueling our future growth and sprouting. And that really landed for me.
Thank you. Thank you, God. Thank you, Spirit. Thank you to the kid at the Santa Monica Farmers Market.
Yes. Well, JJ, we've got to start wrapping up here. I know we could talk for hours, and we will. We'll be able to co-facilitate some retreats coming up. But first and foremost, let's wrap up with a few good things. I want to encourage people to visit you online at johnjacobmubarak.com, where they can get the free meditation download. You've got a great future self meditation. The one I do is called the future self. You can sign up for John's upcoming retreats, and you'll see that we'll be doing some together. JJ also offers breathwork classes and runs spiritual practice challenges. So that's at johnjacobmubarak.com. You can also follow on Instagram and Facebook. I'll put the links in the show notes. But next, let's talk about your upcoming Wachuma retreat in Tulum, Mexico. Who is this designed for? I know that by the time this gets out, it'll probably be sold out, but tell us anyway.
Oh, wow. Yes. Well, at this time, I'm getting ready actually to go to Peru for a retreat, which is sold out in October. Then we'll be in Tulum with Wachan and Martika and their daughter Siwarkente, the beautiful medicine family, the Wilkesara medicine family that I work with in Tulum. It's a 4-day retreat. I'll have that. It's on the website, and it's designed for anyone interested in moving into the new year with intention. The new year is such a beautiful time, and my practice, and these are some of the practices that we'll be doing in conjunction with the plant medicine, is reviewing the year. This is my practice that I've been doing. I can't wait to share my New Year's practices. Review the year. What lessons have I learned from that year? We go in, we have a beautiful ceremony and process on New Year's Eve, and then celebrate at midnight. It's a, celestial party. And then there's the next piece is I like to write a letter to myself from January of the following year. So my future self is writing me a letter, letting me know what's gone on this year. And it's a letter that I work with regularly throughout the year, and it gets revised as things change. But it's this sort of constantly working with that which is seeking to emerge. And the idea is that if this now moment is a condensation of our previously held thoughts, beliefs, opinions, points of view, and perspectives, then the next moment will be a condensation of what we're thinking now. So by working with this letter to ourselves, we are bringing forth, we're holding the frequency of that which is seeking to emerge, and what we think about, we bring about, right? So this idea. So the retreat is really a reset for the year, for the new year, and opening up to the possibility, so that we can. The fundamental principle, to be simple, is through individual transformation, we create a world that works for the best and highest good of all. If I know how connected I am with you and with everyone else, I can't do anything to hurt you. And if I know how connected I am with Pachamama, I'll make different choices about the way that I live. This is transformation. This is the revolution in consciousness. It ain't on TikTok or IG, or it won't be televised, as Gil Scott-Heron reminds us, right?
Yes.
It will take place in consciousness. So the retreat is for those who want to participate in the revolution of consciousness. Aho!
Aho! Aho. Oh, JJ, you are such a gift to this planet, such a gift in my life. I'm so grateful for you. So grateful that we were able to share this time and this inspiration. I know that I will have you back because we only scratched the surface. We still had some other plant medicines to talk about, but oh, what a gift. What a gift. Thank you, dear brother. I will see you soon in Costa Rica to celebrate my birthday.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, my sister. I can't even express to your audience what an impact you've had on my life, and what an angel you have been, an absolute angel. God bless you, God keep you, God shine his face upon you and bring you peace. I love you. I'm grateful for you.
I love you, and I'm grateful for you. Many blessings, my dear brother.
Love you.
Thank you for tuning into the Conscious Evolution Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend, subscribe, and leave us a review and rating on your favorite podcast player. This helps us get the content out to a larger audience. And to watch the video version of the podcast, visit the Pennington Media YouTube channel. Want more info on how psychedelics may improve your mental well-being, how to choose a retreat, or what to look for in a shaman? Get on the Psychedelic Curious email journal. The link is in the show notes and on my website, AndreaPennington.com. You can also sign up for my free masterclass series, where each month I take a deep dive into a topic in holistic healing, trauma recovery, self-love, resilience, and psychedelic-assisted therapy.